Okay, so let's create two additional visuals just to check it one more time. So let me make this smaller for now. Let's actually Ctrl C to copy it, Ctrl V to paste it. So we have a second time. And the only thing I like to do is now to modify this a little bit. So I still import Matplotlib, import Seaborn. By the way, you don't need to import pandas. So you can also go in here and put in a hash symbol and from it. So the fact that this is a comment, right? So because we don't use this, this is used automatically. Then as an s.join plot, instead of a join plot, let's actually create a different plot. So let's say we would like to use a pair plot. So let me remove this for now and say as an s.pair plot also allows us to show the cohesion between the amount and the sales we have. So pair plot and then we specify here the data. So data is equal to the data set because you use all the columns. We currently only have those two, amount and sales. So that's why we don't need to specify anything else here. So you prefer to complete data set to the two columns. Define the pair plot and then we can run this. So as soon as I click this one button here, run the script. You'll see that now script is working here and you see what we get inside here like this one. Okay. So if you prefer this visualization, just in case you see here also distribution of the amount, you also see a distribution here of the sales. You can see there's a clear tendency that the sales is a low amount here because this is the highest amount here. It's can see here from the histogram here and then it goes down like here. Okay. And then here you can see the correlation between the amount and the sales here as well as here amount and sales. Right. So that's also a visual you could use simply from the pair plot and just let me just copy this. So hopefully you were able to see it, but just in case you were not, let me just copy it. I go to a new line and just paste it inside. Okay. So the code is really easy. It's simply referring to different kinds of personalization from the Seaborn library. And you don't have to use Seaborn if you prefer Matplotlib. For instance, other kind of packages. You can also refer to those. Of course, you need to install them first. So that's the code and let's do this one final time. But this time we actually write a little bit more code and let's do a violin plot. So violin plot is also kind of interesting because it also shows us a distribution. But let's say we get smaller and drag it here. So go over to the visual, click on the Python visual here. So here's a visual. You can drag this around on your screen. And now let's actually do our Seaborn plotting with the violin plot. So at first I need to drag some fields here. So we already know how that works. But let's practice it one more time. We drag the amount inside in the values. We drag the sales into the values. So well, here we go. And then in this case, I also like to drag the category into the values. So also drag this inside. So we have a data frame with the category, the amount, and the sales. And also here I right click on the amount. This is crucial because I don't want to have the sum. I don't want to see only one dot. I would like to see all the observations. So each row in the data set. That is why I say don't summarize for the amount and do the same for the sales. Don't summarize. Okay, so we're good to go. And of course now we need to write some code in here. So I press simply enter to go to new line. Now let me import here. That's not lit. So import. Matplot. lib.pyplot as plt as my navigation. Then from matplot. lib.pyplot. I want to import the figure. And I also like to import Seaborn. So import Seaborn. Born as SNS. Okay, so these are the packages or modules I like to import from those packages. And now I can define the figure, so I can say figure. Here. And here specify the fixed size. So let's say, fig size is equal to And I can specify what should this be the size of the visual to peak size, so I can say 8,6. So width and height specify here. And I can do a few additional things. So DPI for instance, could say is 80. Face color is equal to white. And the edge color. So let's say edge color is equal to K. OK. And by the way, if you're more interested in figuring out all these parameters because there are so many parameters and which customization options and MetaLib, I would highly recommend you to simply go on the internet and search for the library, because there you find everything in detail. So I often also go to the library itself and have to look something up because I can't remember all these things. So much customization. It's really crazy. So simply search for the internet, go to MetaLib, search for this package, and you find everything in the documentation. So it's a very good documentation. You find a lot of things in here. Okay. So we define the figure here. And then I also like to update the font size. So let's say, matplot. Let this case.rc per arms. And then .update until we need to put in the dictionary and specify the program itself. So let's say font.size. And we specify this to be 30. So there's something you can play around with. So 30. Okay. So we got this as well. And finally, I'd like to create the visualization. So in this case, we're front with the Seaborn packages again. So Seaborn is SNS and provision and say SNS. And other violin plot. Which I also really like, I have to say. So let's actually push like that. Well, and plot and say X is equal to this case from the data set. And as I said before, we have the option to either put in the name of the column, or we specified like data set, which is referring to our panel's data frame, and then specify in quotes, the column name we want to refer to, which in this case is category. Okay, here we go. Which is this one. And then the Y. Y is equal to data sets. And let's say here we're using the sales. Okay, sales. And don't worry, I just put this also in the Jubilant notebook just in a second so you can see the code a little bit bigger, because here I'm not sure whether it's possible to zoom in. So that is why I'm using the Jubilant notebook just in a second. And finally, I'd like to define the palette. So let's say palette is equal to blue. It's loose. Okay. Like that. And then we also set the xtext plt.xtext. And define a rotation. Rotation is equal to, let's say, 25 degrees. And then finally, we go to plt.show, because we need to show something individual. So let's actually do that. Let me run this. And I get a little error here. So let's just see the details and see if we can know what you're named matplotlib. Okay. So that was a spelling mistake. So let's go back into the code, matplotlib, and from matplotlib. No, there's not B, it's a sub KT in here. And also there I misspelled here as well. It's matplotlib. So should be fine. And now let's run this one more time. And we can see our violin plot in here. Okay. So just be aware, sometimes might be the case that happens to you as well, that you misspelled something in here. But the worries probably here is telling you what's the issue is. You can see here we got a violin plot. So we get a distribution here also for the sales. So each data point or each row in the data set for all the different kinds of categories we have. And we see that for drinks there, for instance, a huge outlier up there. And also for the meat, there's also an outlier here versus condiments, for instance, which is actually quite neat. But we consider distribution here. Right. And we also see here where the highest amount or the most amount of data points lie. So that's why I really prefer this kind of violin plot. It's really nice. And here you also see that our category labels are here in 25-degree range. That's what we specified here in the rotation. That is why I said, feel free to go to the library. So to a Mac.lib and simply search for all these parameters and all these options can style, because you can do a lot in here. So let me just find the copy all of this code, Control C to copy it. And let me go to my top lib to a notebook one more time. And let me just paste this inside. So you have this also in a bigger size in here. Hopefully you can see that. So we import the packages, be aware that you spat it correctly, do not the same mistake as I did, and then specify here a few problems. As I said, you can play around with those. If you want to change them, the most important point then is creating the violin plot here. Referring to this case, the specific columns you want for the data set. It also specified the panels here. You can choose different kinds of color palette if you want. And then crucial also is the plt.show, the plt.text, simply rotation for the X labels, but the plt.show and the sporn violin plot. These are the most important points here. Okay. And yeah, that's it. That's the code in order to create a sporn visual in here with the violin plot. And there are many more plots, but that's basically how you use Python in Pandas for visualizations. Okay. So that's it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, best guys. Best.